Hey, so I wanted to see how far I could get with starting a painting and trying to finish it on camera without being on camera for too long. So here we have a 9 by 12 inch piece of Bristol paper, which is Bristol vellum surface, 9 by 12 inches, 100 pound or 270 gram meter squared. I forgot how to say that. I don't know. So here we go. Let me just get set up. And I thought it would be kind of fun to show you what the whole process is like. So literally from start to finish, grabbing the piece of paper, pouring the paint or squeezing the paint out of the tube bottle. That's interesting. You know, you say the funniest things when you're on camera and it's unscripted, you know? Excuse that, that's my dog. You okay? She's getting old, so she's having a little bit of trouble breathing. All right, I'm going with some vermilion, some yellow green, some mint white, and I'm looking for here it is, my turquoise green. It's called something different when it's in the professional line or the expert series. This is the standard series. I don't think I have any more of the expert series one. I want to say the expert series color is aqua green. But I'm not sure. Okay, so that's pretty centered. And then I have my Classico jar of water, which I use to, you know, clean my brushes. And then I have a little towel that I like to dab the paint on and then wash it in the water. And then sometimes I will also, maybe I should keep this on camera too. That works right there. So I'll wet my brush, give it a little dab, and then get started, except I grabbed the wrong brush. I want something bigger to block everything out. So I have this very particular style of painting, and my process kind of just arrived after a lot of time experimenting, a lot of time spent trying out new things, figuring out what works for me. And you know what? I don't want this page to start curling on me. So I'm going to tape it down. And I know some artists like to prep their surface with either gesso or they hit it with some kind of spray to get a better tack. But that's why I like painting on a Bristol vellum surface, because it's got a little tiny bit of a grain. It still feels soft. It still feels like paper. But I feel like I get that same amount of tack that I do with a canvas. So I'm really just looking for a similar feel to the canvas, because I love the texture that gets picked up when you paint on canvas. So part of my process, I like to think that I paint intuitively. So this intuition comes with a lot of practice. And, you know, because I feel like when you first start painting, there's a lot of like questioning, there's a lot of experimenting, there's a lot of unknowns, uncertainties. And so by experimenting and figuring out what you like, that uncertainty is no longer, and you feel things more clearly, there's less thinking involved. There is thinking, because I also like to think of my pieces, every single one of them is like a puzzle. And at first it's really expressive. It's just getting paint down on the paper or the canvas, covering it up completely, and moving on to the next step, which is refining, adding details, forming the composition. This piece right here is almost completely covered. And I like to go in with sort of a dry brush because I want the paint to dry. By the time I'm ready to go in with the next layer, I want it to be dry and ready to go for the next layer of paint. So here we go, covering it up completely, mixing some of my colors. And at this point, I'm not too concerned about anything. This is the loosening up stage. This is where my only task at hand is to cover the paper or cover the canvas. And that's all that I'm leaving to myself. This is one of the best things about starting a painting, I think, is, you know, part of my process is getting rid of that pressure. I started out portrait painting and landscape painting, so everything was a little bit more stressful. Being the perfectionist that I am, I didn't particularly enjoy that kind of painting. I did enjoy it for the actual sake of painting, because I love painting. But that particular style was a little bit too much pressure for me. This is sort of a release, and I find it to be a very therapeutic thing for me. Of course, I also do this for a living, but it is something that I also like to look at as an escape. And so, being that I would be so stressed out and so determined to make something look perfect, I wasn't really into landscapes or portraits for that reason. It just felt like too much work, and I was losing some of the joy of painting. And so this process, this way of painting, has been just my go-to, my favorite style. It's super expressive, it's super intuitive, and I come back to that intuition. I rely on it because during my years of experimentation and figuring out my style and what I like to do, how I like to paint, I discovered that in learning things like composition, color theory, the different elements of creating art, of looking at a painting, of creating a painting. It's all intuitive now because I've spent the time, I've taken the time to learn it. And so it's second nature. Whereas someone who might just be getting into it, dabbling, it may seem like more of a struggle, more something that they have to think about rather than something that comes easier, more intuitively. So yeah, this is the way that I love to paint, and you can see now that I'm starting to work on the second layer, and I'm really just going in and making sure I've covered up all of those bare spots that don't have any paint. And we're starting to get somewhere. Lately I've been really into getting back to color. So for some time I was trying to expand my style and challenging myself to try out different palettes, using more neutrals, and I discovered that I do like that. However, this is where my strong suit is, and why not focus on what I love painting the most, which is super colorful artworks like this. I'll show you what a piece looks like when it's, well, I don't have any finished pieces here. They're all stored at this point, but I have a piece here that is really close to being finished. And you can just see the details, the layers, how different it looks from the beginning. Of course, that's a different variation of my style. I also have pieces that show like that I work in larger shapes, different kinds of compositions. I've got two pieces here that are kind of somewhere in the middle of the process. So you can see that a composition is starting to take place, but the colors don't quite make sense. They are a little bit loud and busy to call them finished. So it's all part of the process. It's figuring out the puzzle, I like to call it. So first layer, getting paint down. It doesn't matter. There doesn't have to be a rhyme or reason. The next step is to go in with a second layer, add more dimension, add more shapes. So that's what I'm doing right now. And my goal for this video is to finish this piece on camera. So that's fun. That's something I've never quite tackled before. I've tried to, but then I, realized that I've been filming for 3-4 hours at a time, and that's just my ambitious self trying to get work done and taking advantage of the camera being there and getting some filming time in. But yeah, it's a process. Each painting is a process, and it takes time to figure out what your process is. It really takes time to connect with that part of yourself that will intuitively feel and know when a painting is finished, or what it needs more of. Does it need another layer? Does it need more detail? Does it need, just something else? Or is it finished? What about it makes it look finished? All of these things you will come to know with practice. With time and practice, I should say, because you can spend a lot of time practicing and not get anywhere. And I always say that it is like it's part of a routine for myself personally. I just paint so much, and I love painting. I don't like to call it my job, but I do it so much that I'm very connected to my process. And so my process is pretty much overall the same across the board with every painting. However, I was mentioning earlier, I do have a few different variations in my style. And so this is kind of something that I do so that I'm always interested. I'm always intrigued about the process. I'm always into the painting that I'm creating. Of course, I've painted quite a few paintings. Can't really say how many, but I've painted enough and for enough time that I'm an expert in my own style. And so these things are what bring about that intuition that just feels so natural now. And I get so into it. Usually when I paint on camera, I'm painting live on Instagram. And I want to get my requirements in order here on YouTube so that I can start painting live here on YouTube. I swear that I used to paint live on YouTube, or I've done it before, like several times before in the past, and with like little to no followers. So I'm just not sure about what those requirements are. I'll have to find out. But I'd like to do that. I'd like to start focusing on going live on different platforms. So as I get on with these layers, I start to see more dimension, more interesting aspects of the painting that can be brought out. You okay, baby? She's getting old. She's 12 years old, Delilah. She's a Yorkie Dachshund, which people call Dorkies. And then my other dog is a Rat Terrier Dachshund. And it's funny, you can picture both of those breeds in your head and kind of imagine what she might look like. That's not what she looks like. Because the Dachshund that was one of her parents, I don't know if it was her mother or her father, but one of them, the one that was a Dachshund, was a blonde, wire-haired Dachshund, if you can picture that. if you can't picture it and you're interested enough, just type that in Google and you'll literally see a Harry Dotson with wire hair. And it's true, like, she really is a wire-haired because she's got, her hair is a little coarse. It's not as curly as the wire-haired Dotson, but it does have that, like, coarse feel. So, then her other parent was a rat terrier that must have been just long and skinny. And so if you can picture a long, skinny, like for her breed, for being a Dotson, she's tall. And for being a rat terrier, I even think she's tall for being a rat terrier. So her little face, sometimes her ears like lay down in front of her face, kind of like a Dotson, like these two little triangles. But she doesn't have as pointy as a snout as Dotsons do. She has kind of a hybrid shaped face between the two. Not too pointy, not too round. So it's just funny because you can see the visual, like, aspects of both breeds, but you wouldn't think that looking at her. Like, she just looks like her own breed. It's funny. And same thing with Delilah. Like, she's got the weenie body, but she has the Yorkie hair. So you wouldn't even tell she was a Dotson if you were just looking at her face, because the hair of the Yorkie takes away from the pointy snout. You can only see her pointy snout when we're bathing her. And all the hair just like falls down. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. And of course, well, she's really short. So that is a major trait that Dotsons have, physical trait. So now at this point, I'm just going in. We're about working on the third layer now. And actually it seems like it's going pretty fast, but considering how many layers go into this, I couldn't quite tell you when it would be finished. Every piece is different. Every painting is different in that it might take longer, it might be quicker. Maybe it was just a puzzle that got solved quicker than another piece. Maybe I'm creating two of them at the same time. Maybe I'm switching back and forth between pieces, because as it stands right now, I have this piece that I just started with leftover paint. I have this piece that is probably, I want to say 2 layers in, not quite finished with the second layer. And then this one is probably same thing. It's heading towards a 3rd layer. And then these, they're probably on their 5th layer. And this is just really close to being finished. So it just depends on the painting itself, how I'm creating at that moment, single or multiple. Usually it's multiple. Usually I just have a whole bunch of different paints on my palette, and I actually use one of these Bristol pads, the cardboard side, to put my paint on. I used to get whatever piece of cardboard and then line it with this special palette paper that was reusable. So if you're using acrylic paint, you could literally just peel it off and start fresh with that same piece of disposable palette paper. I should say that's what it was called. But I stopped doing that because I just kept piling up the dried acrylic paint palettes and didn't know what to do with them. I still is it all right, so my camera died and I forgot what I was talking about. But maybe I should move this here so you can see the actual painting and the palette. Water break. Okay, so usually what I would do is film this and then edit it so that there's, you know, more of a flow and not a lot of dead air, basically. But we're gonna post the whole thing this time because I have found it interesting to see when artists include everything too, like even the mixing paint part of the process. Because although this seems very simple and time consuming and maybe boring to me because I do it all the time, all day, or for the whole time that I'm painting, that it's just this mundane extra piece that could just get cut out and it would be fine. But then the person watching who might be interested in creating something along with the video would maybe find interesting or helpful. So that's why I'm doing this. I have found it helpful myself in the past, so I'm doing it for that reason. And also, I don't think I have a single video that is just completely unedited like that. So we're doing it this time. And I may do this more often because I've had people request it in the past. I've had people say that I paint too fast, which I promise you I don't paint too fast. I probably paint too fast for someone who's just beginning, but I definitely paint too fast when it's sped up. So I understand that, and this is why you're getting the real live feed. All right, looks like I need more of everything. More green, more turquoise, which I don't remember what oh, there it is. You know what? I should just leave them out, huh? I keep putting them back inside the box. Too bad they don't fit on camera. This is the turquoise green. This one's called yellowish green, but in the expert series, it's called greenish yellow. So I don't know why they're different. Maybe to distinguish the two from each other. Which kind of sucks, because if you want the same exact color, actually these two colors are a little different, but they're the same color. Can you tell this one's more yellow and this one's got more of a blue undertone? So, and then the vermilion is the red orange that we're using, and then mint. So I sort of alternate between, I want to say four different brands of paint. Amsterdam Expert is my absolute favorite. I love Lucas Studio paints. I love Sennelier. This is the Sennelier. I don't really go with golden that much because of how expensive they are, but I do like these little mini nugget small tubes of their fluid acrylics. Super highly pigmented, and you just need like the tiniest drop to pack a punch. I love their dioxazine purple, their green gold, and I also have a yellow orange, but it's, I think it's called Indian yellow or something. I'm not sure. It's somewhere. And I mean, I do have some tubes of golden, but it's so expensive that I just feel even the standard series of Amsterdam acrylics is super comparable. It's super high quality still. The Lucas Studio, what else? That was for, Delilah, Zoe, hey, come here, come. I think one of my neighbors just got home, so of course the dogs are, that's their way of welcoming people. And then I also, hey, come here. Zoe, come here. Zoe. As soon as I open my mouth and speak, she's gonna start barking. There we go, there's the other one. Delilah. Okay, so those are the different brands of paint I use. I used to use Charvin acrylics. I think they're like professional line or expert series equivalent is called Extra Fine. I would have to dig out a tube to show you. Or maybe there's one right here actually. Okay, there's one right here. So the reason I don't buy these anymore is, I mean, I love how good quality they are. The tubes are a little bit small, but what really irks me is their lids just, the mechanism for which they, you know, screw back on, it's just horrible. Like, I am not the best at, you know, dealing with this. I really enjoy a cap that just pops on and off, and then once the paint builds up here, I'll just rip it off. These get like so cemented around the top that when you finally like try to get the lid off, it separates and you're just left with a hole that you can't like screw back on. And so that's kind of irritating. I do enjoy the quality of these paints. However, I just can't get over this lid situation. Comment below if you have an issue with the lids on the Charvin paints. I really just love a basic lid that if the paint does build up like that, I can just take it off. For some reason, it doesn't come off so easily on those Charvin paints, but that's kind of why I steer away from those now. It's just too annoying. especially throughout the day-to-day where I'm grabbing paint. You know, acrylic paint dries fast, so you essentially have to work a little bit faster than you would if you were painting with oil paints. Oil paints take days, if not months, to dry. The oil paints that I first got into were Lucas Studio Oils. Same brand as this acrylic paint in the oil paint medium. And so those were my favorite paints because they contained beeswax in them as part of their, you know, oil blend. They still had oil in them, but that was just the recipe. And because they had beeswax, which they also sold as an impasto medium in just that, like that, it was just a tube of the impasto medium beeswax, it dries really quickly. Like, you can paint a second or third layer just a few days later. Especially if it's really a super thin layer, you can go over that pretty quickly. It just depends on how thick the paint is that you're going on with. But so even a fast drying oil paint takes a few days. Forget the ones that are completely linseed oil or linseed and walnut blend, whatever kind of blend it is. When it's completely comprised of just oil, it's annoying because it takes forever to dry. Anyways, for me, it's annoying. I like to work fast. I love that instant gratification. This painting, for example, if it was oil, I might be working on this for a month, and it's not anywhere close to being finished, you know? So that's one of the things that I love about acrylics, is that they have a very fast drying property. So I'm a little bit more inclined to go with acrylic paint these days, even though I really do enjoy oil painting, and I still have my oil paints. Apart from the fact that they take forever to dry, that just creates a really slow turnaround rate too. Like, the painting could be sitting there for months before it's dry. And I just love that if someone purchases a painting from me, they can literally get it in the mail 1 week from the time that it's finished, you know? That turnaround period is really fast. And so you can't really get that with oil painting. It has to fully dry, especially if you're going to varnish it. Like, that's another drying period that it has to go through. So for someone who isn't really familiar with that whole drying process, if they're going through buying a painting from you, it's just kind of annoying to have to explain that to them, that it's going to take time to dry. And, you know, for me, it's just not practical. Like, to paint with oils every day, it's definitely not practical. It's messy. It gives me a headache. I feel like I'm holding my breath the whole time. So this is my happy place. This is what I love to do. This is the medium of my choice. And, you know, you can tell I'm really passionate about it. And I can tell I'm really passionate about it. Like, it just makes me so happy that if I'm inclined to, like in this moment, for example, I could finish a painting in one sitting if I wanted to. So it just so happens that's what we're doing today. We are challenging ourselves to not pick up another painting and just work on this piece here, because why not, right? I feel like I've always said that, because why not? And once I started hearing Mr. Kate say it, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I have always said that. It's like, you're speaking my language. So basically, back to process, the painting starts to take form. So you may not be able to see it, but I have an eye for these things because I've been doing it a while, and I just know what part of my process this is. This is probably the 5th layer in. And not every layer completely covers up the whole painting. It just may be a few little details here and there. But what I'm actually seeing is there's a lot of dark value coming up this way. I could bring it down this way a little bit, skip this section here, lighten it up a little bit, darken this part a little more, keep going with this, lighten this corner, and I've got a little wave going on. Sort of like the same composition as this. Yes, I have different names for different compositions, and I like to have fun with my work and give things names that other people don't maybe use. So that's just something fun I like to do, because if I go into the technical terms of certain compositions, I just get lost, because I do have some compositions that are completely made up, like they're my own. And for example, I have a bow tie composition. So it meets somewhere in the middle, and then you have 2 triangles going out. So either that part is the lighter value, or the 2 triangles here and here are the ones that are lighter value. So there's some kind of contrast between these 2 triangles that meet in the middle, just like a bow tie. It's like, it goes like this. So you have a visual, except this part is filled in. So that's the bow tie. And then I'm either going to focus on everything kind of flowing like this, or I'm going to focus on these 2 negative spaces, and it just looks really cool. And I've never seen that kind of composition before, so I call it my own. I made it up on my own with my style. It was just born one day. So voila. So it could be said that about 5 layers in is when things start to take shape. So I start to look at the painting like a puzzle. I'm like asking myself these questions, like, where is it going? Where can I take it? If it doesn't make sense at all, and it's just a headache, and I've had too many layers going into it, which happens very rarely, I will say. Usually I have enough compositions that I work with that something starts to arise, something starts to look familiar to me, and I will go with the closest route and just feed into that familiarity. That's part of my process. And so it just gets to a point where I'm refining, I'm working on this puzzle, and the composition becomes more framed, it becomes more clear. So we get closer to finishing the painting. And actually, I have not mixed all three of these colors together. I kind of like this neutral that it's making, this like olivey green. So I'm gonna use that to darken some areas that I want to be a little darker. And so this part will be lightened. I think I kind of like this big empty space here. I like this empty space and how this kind of runs off on its own. And then I like that this half is more cluttered. It's still gonna follow that kind of wavy shape that I was talking about. That will make sense closer to the end. But for now, it is still a work in progress. It takes some finagling and finessing to get it there. So I really like this light green color that almost looks like a yellow. Because it is a greenish yellow, when you add white to it, you can really see the yellow under it. Okay, so we wanted this part to be lighter. So now, disregarding any prominent shapes that we have, it's okay. They kind of look cool underneath everything anyway. Lightening up this section right here. And actually right now I'm not using my go-to white paint. So if you're familiar with painting, if you're an artist yourself, or if you're a beginner, it doesn't matter. You may know the difference between an opaque white and a transparent white. I like a nice blend between the two. So my perfect nice blend between the two is this Lukas Krill Studio in titanium white. I'm out of it, and I'm kind of like getting irritated and upset lately because I haven't been able to order it. Somehow the last shipment became undeliverable, whatever that means. I think something happened to the shipment, or I don't know, they sent it back for some reason and they couldn't tell me why. So I reordered it again, and I have to wait I don't know how long to get a new one. And it's a little bit annoying, it's a little bit upsetting, because that's just the paint that I go to. And I was kind of forced to buy a paint and take a gamble on something that I am not crazy about. This is a Royal & Langnickel acrylic gesso that's quick drying, bright white matte finish. I'm not a big fan of using gesso as a white because I feel like it dries out too quickly. I don't have that time to blend my colors, let it sit on the palette a little bit. And it just, this one in particular is not even what I would consider to be a gesso. It is super watered down. It's like a very basic line. It's their essentials line. To be fair, I haven't tried any of their other lines of paint. I'm not even sure if they do have other lines of paint, which is kind of sad because I love their brushes. Like, I am a die-hard fan of the Royal and Langnickel Zen line of brushes. Like, these are my go-to brushes. And I just think they look so chic. They look and they are amazing. They hold up to my, like, the brutal way that I mess up my brushes. I'm totally anti-artist when it comes to my brushes. I just destroy them. And I think it's because of all the dry brushing. But anyway, yeah, I'm really upset that I had to go with just like whatever paint that was available. And I can really tell a difference in my paintings. Like, when I mix something, it's a little bit too transparent, and I'm just not used to that. I'm used to a little bit more opacity, and I'm not crazy about 100% opacity. I don't like a super opaque white paint because I feel like it dulls the color a little bit that I'm using to mix it with, to lighten it. And so I love that Lucas white because it lightens the color, but it doesn't change the color. It doesn't dull it. And so this paint, actually, this white gesso doesn't dull it either, but it's just way too transparent for me. Like, if it weren't for the really good paints that I'm using, I don't think you'd be able to see that much pigment. So, as it stands, my Lucas Krill Studio Titanium White is supposed to be here anywhere from today to the 7th, which is 5 days from now. So we're just waiting. We're waiting for it. We don't know when it's gonna get here, and until it does, I'm just a little bit sad. It sounds silly, but it's true. I probably am a little bit attached to, you know, the art supplies that I have a preference for. I don't know. Sounds silly saying it out loud, but I have experimented with enough brands to know the ones that I prefer, the ones that I love. I gotta say, it was love at first sight with Amsterdam acrylics. Like, it's the Expert series, seriously, is the creme de la creme, especially for the price. You can get them for a really good deal at Jerry's Artorama, especially if you become a frequent buyer and they send you deals through your email. They're always sending me like specialized codes, and it's awesome. Like, I do save a lot of money shopping at Jerry's versus shopping at Michael's, or I haven't really done a lot of comparing between Jerry's and Dick Blick, but what can I say? I'm just a tried and true Jerry's girl. I got no shame in my Jerry's game. I gotta turn my camera on and off every 29 minutes. I have the Canon EOS M50, and it's a great camera. Don't get me wrong, I love the picture. It's amazing quality, especially because it's my first, like, nice pro camera. but I'm a little bit upset. I feel like I should have done more research. I guess not so much upset as I am like a little disappointed. I've had it for a while now, so that disappointment has kind of like dissipated, so it's not like in full effect anymore. But what I'm saying is that even if it's fully, like it has a fully charged battery, it only lasts to film 29 minutes at a time for some reason. Like I could film like 3 or 4 sessions of 29 minutes and the battery will start to die. Like it won't last for that many sessions. But I just wish I could film all the way through and not have to stop it, because technically the battery is still, and you know, maybe there's somewhere in the settings where I can make it film longer. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not much of a techie guru. My parents would tell you otherwise because I am a millennial. And I know how to work aux cables, set up a camera, film stuff on a phone, rewind a VCR. Like, what else can I say? Yeah, it's funny. My parents have had smartphones for years now. Took them a while to get on the smartphone train, which I don't blame them. I read this marketing book by Seth Godin, and he was talking about how there's different groups of people. And, you know, you have the people that will jump on something the minute it comes out, the minute it's released. They want it. They don't care if it doesn't have any data on whether or not it's good or not. Like, they want to try the next best thing. And then there's the group that kind of sits back and waits to see how it worked out for that first group of people. And then they'll kind of make the switch after knowing a little bit about it, after seeing that it's become successful or popular. And I believe there's even a third group of people who, despite this like knowledge of how popular or successful an item is, they still won't make the switch, and they're kind of just sticking to the old tech, if you will. They're keeping their record players alive. They're playing movies on their VCR. They refuse to buy a DVD player. Like those kinds of people, right? And so, yeah, it's funny how a generation of people can have an opinion about the next generation because there's such a stark contrast. Like, they grew up with virtually no tech compared to us, and that makes us techies, you know? So it's funny. It's funny that my parents think both my sister and I are techies, but in fact, I would say our knowledge on stuff like this is really kind of basic, and I feel like I could get into it. I could really study my camera. I could really, you know, get into it and learn, but I'm holding out for that time when I can just hire someone to do it for me, honestly. I really am. Like, I want to focus all of my energy into painting, and like, I don't mind being involved with things. Like, I always want to know what's going on with my art business. I want to, you know, take part in the marketing, the advertising, the, you know, the engagement, the content creation, everything. I would still like to, you know, take part in. However, I am totally up for outsourcing some things, especially the filming and editing part of the content. That is very time consuming, to the point where I consider doing this, like posting something that is unedited and just, you know, having something out there that I really didn't have to spend time finessing over, you know, because most of my YouTube videos, they are edited, especially the painting ones. So it's just it's a game, really. And I think mostly I've done that to make things interesting, you know? Because me personally, and this might just be because I have watched myself paint a lot. I have gone through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage. I've spent a lot of time painting live. And I've just decided, you know, it's time to create different kind of content, you know? Like, I'm sure there would be people out there that would want to paint along with me live like this in real time. So I will not be editing this, other than I will be basically gluing different footages together. Like, since I can only film 29 minutes at a time, I'll have to grab each 29-minute increment of painting time, put them together, and then post it like that. So I actually can't tell you how much time it takes to edit even just an hour of footage. Like, I have started a second YouTube channel, and it's more personal, more lifestyle oriented. I'm on this path to lose weight and just find my healthy self again. I feel like it brings me a lot of happiness to be just in the best shape that I can be. And so I wanted to document that. I'm a pretty shy person. Maybe you might not be able to tell so much during this video, but I am. I've just gotten really used to talking to the camera while I paint. So it's pretty second nature to do that. Like, so I thought, why not film my weight loss stuff and help that be something that pushes me to do better, you know? And so I've been posting videos on my weight loss channel that are probably not longer than 15 minutes. Actually, I don't even think they're that long. They're pretty short. And the reason they're short is because editing takes so much time, like I said. I'm not complaining. I actually kind of like the process of editing. It's just now that I'm, you know, a little bit more in demand as an artist and I need to paint a lot more. I have to have a semi-strict painting schedule. I have to do it even when I don't want to do it, which I don't mind actually, because sometimes when I'm not in the mood to paint and I like, you know, I just paint, I don't give it a second thought anymore, because if I do, I just won't do it. So I just, you know, I do something that gets me in the mood. I'll make a tea or a coffee, I'll play some music, I'll put on a podcast, turn on an audiobook, like do something that will, you know, keep my mind busy while I'm painting and just like keep me interested. Especially like art books, but oh my gosh, I'm like getting off on different tangents here. Yeah, sticking to that schedule to paint, and then I don't want to make my weight loss videos so long that I'm taking time away from painting because editing takes so long, you know? So even if I'm just posting a 5-minute video, it might be like, let's just say it's an hour of footage and I just took a bunch of clips and put them together and turned them into a story, made them make sense. That's what editing essentially is you're just taking footage, you're picking out the fun and interesting parts, and you're putting them together and they somehow make sense. So that's your job when you're editing, to figure out how these clips can be put together to make sense. And so that takes time. I will say I've started editing a video for my weight loss channel. I maybe have just over an hour of footage. I'm like 10 minutes in. I've been working on it for 3 days. And I've gotten a little bit faster because I'm a little bit more experienced with editing. I've been doing it for a couple years now. I still just use iMovie, honestly. Before I was using DaVinci Pro Resolve. Okay, I have absolutely no idea what I was saying exactly before my camera died. Well, it wasn't my camera that died, it was my memory card that ran out of space, so. The perks of having one camera, I tell you. It's really fun. No, it's not. Yeah, it's just how I do things right now. I'm not quite at the point. Oh, I need some water too. Jeez, I'm so unprepared. But you know, I think these are the things that make it interesting. If you're following along and you need a little break, of course you can pause it at any time and take your break. But if you're watching with me and taking on this challenge of painting in one sitting, finishing a piece in one sitting, then that's what I mean. So I'm sure I was talking about my process. Sorry, it's been a couple hours. I let my battery charge and I'm back. So I have to get back into that flow of chatting, you know? It's a little difficult when you don't exactly remember. Delilah, you okay? Sorry about that. I just took them for a walk, so she's a little huffy puffy, especially from going up the stairs. She's getting old, so we're watching out. We're keeping a close eye on her, and we have to get her to, we have to take her to see a new vet here in Utah. And it was not really good news from her vet back in Arizona. I can't remember what was wrong. It wasn't me that took her, it was John that took her. And so I'll have to ask him. I think there's something wrong with her heart or her lungs. I can't be sure. But it's really old age too. She has lived an extremely active life. Extremely. I mean, this dog hikes, runs, swims, chases after birds. She does everything. She's fearless. She does not let her size impede anything that she does. I'm like, I need to be more like Weenie. She's just so fearless. She lives her life. And I think a lot of it is because of how trusting she is with John. He got her when she was like just a few days old. And so he is the sun, the moon, and the stars to her. She trusts him so much. He could literally hang her upside down if he wanted to. Not that he ever would. I'm just giving an example. She allows him to do anything, like he can carry her like a baby. Delilah, Zoe. He can carry her like a baby. He can walk her without a leash. She's so obedient and so loyal. She's really the perfect dog. She's a little bit protective of him. Not with me, but like with other people. She's so used to me. I've been around her since she was 2 years old, and she's 12 now. So I'm mom basically, but I want to say that John is more, she's got that bond with him because they've been together since day one. Like, it's a different kind of bond. Hey. And that's Zoe barking. You can really tell what the, like, you know when they say that dogs kind of show you who their owners are? Well, I can be sometimes scandalous. I can be over dramatic. I can be Zoe. I can just be loud and rambunctious sometimes, despite the fact that I'm pretty shy. I can also really show my Latina side, if you will. And I think Zoe like picks up on that, and so she's really vocal. Yeah. She's really vocal. And she barks and she growls, but like a nice growl, not a mean growl. And it's funny because like when we're out walking them, when I'm out walking them, and she might like bark at another dog. And that dog, let's say, were to come up to her. She's all talk. Like she'll bark at them, but like she just wants to sniff them and like see who they are. It's so funny because she comes off to be like threatening, but she's really not. And so I always have to tell people like she's friendly. She wants to like stand her ground at first. I don't know. It's a protective thing, I think. And Delilah's like that too, except Delilah, you have to get really close to John for her to like, you know, tell you something basically. All right, so this piece, I can kind of see the composition is starting to make a lot more sense. We're getting there. We are. And I purposely am not rushing this. Like, I'm trying to take my time, as I would with other paintings, you know. I'm trying not to rush things so much, for the sake of making a very genuine start to finish painting. We could probably bring some neutrals into this by mixing, well, really I mixed all three colors, this teal, the vermilion, and the lime green, with some white. And I got this warm gray. I don't know if that's gonna focus. Well, you can see it here in the corner of the painting. I don't know if you can tell, but I mean, I can tell. I'm a lot less enthusiastic than I was in the previous clips, because it's coming up on 10 p.m. and I've been painting and filming all day, which also, as a byproduct, means I've been talking all day. And so I'm like, how many videos can how many like painting sessions can I really film and make before I've dropped, you know? You shop till you drop, you paint till you drop too. And I'm getting close to that point, but you know what? I'm committed. This piece needs to be finished in the same sitting. I would have finished it by now had my camera not decide to crap out on me. It's probably my fault for not checking it first. I should have checked it to see the memory situation, but see, I have this SD card on it that is really, really large. Here we go again with my tech skills. I believe it's like 256 gigabytes or something. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that. Which is kind of a pretty substantial amount of video. Like, I mean, for me anyway, I tend to, once I upload footage to my computer, I delete it from my camera. I just do that to keep things simple, you know? I don't want to get one of those boxes yet, those memory hard drive things that you can store all of your footage on. I don't believe I'm there yet where my content's so interesting I need to be referring back to, you know, previous footage, but I'm sure in the future that will come in handy and I will end up getting one of those, but for the moment it's not really a necessity. It's not really a necessity, and I'm pretty much just sticking with the same thing I'm doing, except I was mentioning before that my content creation methods have changed, if you will, or are in the process of changing. For the sake of saving time on editing, I'm posting unedited videos here on YouTube. Probably not all the time, like there will still be edited footage for the sake of making things as interesting as possible. But this is definitely going to be in the repertoire. Okay, I feel like I need a darker, I was calling it teal before, but it's technically turquoise green. I need a darker turquoise green, and I'm just darkening it by adding a little bit of vermilion. It's giving me a more of a navy undertone. And I'm gonna do that to darken this area here. Again, following the composition that I planned out. I'll have to make a special video about all the compositions that I use, because people ask me quite a bit like how I come up with them as I go, and how I've developed the eye for it, what kinds of compositions. They want to see like outlines of what they look like in black and white so that it's really clearly defined. And you know, I started just seeing a pattern. Of course, I studied composition myself. I'm completely self-taught. You okay, baby? You okay? Yeah, so she just has some trouble breathing every now and then, and it kills me, like, that I can't do anything right now. But, back to the composition thing. Basically, I studied composition. I got the feel for it. I tried basically outlining by the book compositions, and I would use those in my work. And I kind of figured out throughout the years which were my favorite. I kind of developed my own throughout the years. I really talk about this like I've been doing it for like decades, but I actually started my art journey in early 2019. So it's been 3 years since I made the decision to pursue art as my full-time occupation. I like to call it my occupation because I love the way that sounds much more than a job. Of course, occupation sounds kind of boring too, but I much more like seeing this and labeling it as something I occupy my time with. And it's a choice. It's not an obligation. It's a choice, and I love it. I enjoy it. I make money doing it. Versus a job kind of implies like, oh, it's like you have to do it to like survive, like to feed yourself, and like that's what you do, that's your job. And you may love it, you may hate it, I don't know. But personally, that's how I like referring to what I do. And I totally lost my train of thought where I was going with that. I'm so sorry. I actually think John is here. Zoe, I heard a car that sounded like his car. Hey, and I'm sure they did too, that's why they're barking. Hey, come here. So, yeah, I'm pretty determined to finish this painting in one sesh. This is actually, what you're seeing now would take me probably, if I was working on it consistently every day, it would take me about 3 days to finish. And I'm not talking about like it's the only piece I'm working on. I'm talking about my usual painting style. At least this past year has kind of been like, I'm jumping all over the place. When I feel like I've finished 2 layers on this piece, I'll work on the next one. I'll grab another one after that. I'll start a new one. Like, at the end of the day, I'll have this pile of just like this, pieces of Bristol paper and canvases that are all just stacked up, probably about, I don't know, 6 inches high. And the next day, I'll work on them some more, start some new pieces. The following, I'll finish all of them. So it's just kind of like this cycle of beginning to work on pieces, continuing to work on them, and then finishing them. Some pieces actually get put into like a discard pile. Like, I'll just get rid of a bunch of leftover paint and they turn into this blah, like unsalvageable painting that I end up completely painting over, or I will kind of, uh-oh. There's a fly distracting me. I'll just do something with them. I like to make these window paintings, and see what I mean? I come up with these names for for these pieces. These window paintings, basically, using this as an example, if I had absolutely no idea where this was going, the composition is just a mess, like there is no clear composition, the colors don't make sense, it's just a total full-on mess. I'll just go in and add more details. I'll grab my Posca pens and I'll just saturate it with details. And then I will circle off my favorite sections and I'll paint around those circled sections. And let me actually go grab one and show you what they end up looking like. They end up looking like this. It's a window painting. Looks like a submarine. So I actually really enjoy making these. So I try to find joy in the things that frustrate me too. So this piece obviously isn't one of those paintings, but it could be, and I would still turn it into a positive experience by having fun turning it into a window painting. So I never, ever, and probably never, ever will throw away a painting because it frustrated me. I feel like I could always do something to fix it up and give it a little bit of love. Okay, so we got that area. I wanted it to dip down like this, so we're probably going to hollow out this space, but I need something dark over here, so I'm gonna get this green and use it to darken this space. Get this, mix it with the green again. Hey, Delilah. Zoe, come here. Zoe, come here. Zoe. Hey, come here. Come. Delilah. It's like once one of them starts, the other one just gets going, and then together they're like unstoppable. They're a team, they really are. Okay, I want a really light peach to be what separates these two darker sections. So let's just get a big gloop of white, tiny little speck of the vermilion. What are you doing? So it might seem like a slow process. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I assume it's going to be at least an hour long. Maybe it'll be double. I don't know. At this point, my mind is like just, I'm ready for bed. I don't know. When I stare at a screen for too long, or my eyes are just like locked in on the painting, my days just like, they go by so quick, first of all, and then yeah, I'm like drained. But maybe you'll appreciate the urban sounds. And the fact that you can hear crickets now. That's the funny thing about living in a house versus living in an apartment. We live in an apartment now. I lived in a house with my parents when we lived in Arizona. And it's just different, like totally different. Where my parents live, it's kind of secluded. You don't really hear sirens, you don't really hear, like the urban sounds are rare, and it's more just like nature that you hear. Birds chirping. You hear some traffic because it's not completely like secluded. They do have neighbors. But just comparing it to living in the city like I do now and having neighbors surround me, and having to be more mindful about the noise I'm making, my dogs barking. Luckily, I do have some neighbors that have animals too, so I feel like they would probably be more understanding than people without pets. I mean, my dogs, they don't bark a whole lot. It's usually just when I have the windows and doors open and I just want like fresh air and they can really like hear everything a lot more. So I think I'm gonna go over this with a layer of white, being that this white is a little bit transparent. I don't think it should really look too white. Should be able to see that pink underneath. So I hope that you've enjoyed the explanation of my process. I hope it makes. Okay, I really forget to look at the camera. I get lost in the painting and the conversation. I don't know where I left off because I don't know where the camera shut my video off. Like I said, it only does 29-minute increments at a time. So that means I'm left talking by myself sometimes. I'm actually pretty surprised about how quick I was able to bring this painting together. I really can't say how long it's been since I created a piece from start to finish. Probably in my very early days when I was just totally new to my process and totally new. Zoe, Delilah. Someone telling their dog to sit. But you know what? I don't mind it. Like, I think about this and I'm like, this is gonna be interesting to look back and see my progress of like painting in my own home versus painting in a studio, because that's my that's my goal. My next goal is to get a studio that is separate from where I live. That's the ultimate thing right there. Home and work separation. Do you know what I mean? I think it would make some really good work-life balance. That fly better not end up in my painting. Do you know what's interesting? Is that I read a lot of great old painters, the masters, if you will. They left their own specimens in their paintings. Not entirely on purpose most of the time. Like, for example, there's a little hair or a fingerprint, you know, just things that happen when you're painting. Because I can imagine you get to a point where you paint so much that, you know, even in the space where you're painting, like, there's bound to be dust, there's bound to be hairs. You're bound to touch the actual painting with your finger. I don't know how good a fingerprint would be captured with like an acrylic painting, because it's pretty thin, unless it's a heavy body or unless it has like a medium. I'm talking about like these days versus those days back then when oil painting was the only medium. How interesting is that? That at some point in time, oil painting was the only medium of choice. Medium available, not of choice. Just simply available. It's pretty crazy to think about. So at this point, I'm doing some more refining of the composition, lightening some areas, darkening others, and really just making sure there's a good balance of values. I'm not too concerned about my color choices. I know there's harmony because I only have 4 colors on my palette, and every single color that I've put on this painting has been derived by using these same 4 colors. So it's a limited palette, to put it simply. And I'm not worried about whether the colors look good or not. I know the colors look great. I chose a simple and go-to color choice palette on purpose for this video. And I just thought it would be easier to film something that is more go-to versus something that would be like a little more out of the box. And I would be able to paint something in a reasonable amount of time and not take like 3 hours on it or 4 hours. And you know, this is also the perfect size painting to do it with, because if I was doing it with a 5x7 like this, this kind of painting surprisingly takes longer than one like this, because it's so small that it almost takes longer for the paint to dry, because I can whip around it so quickly with the smallest amount of paint, and then it's like still wet and I have to wait, and then I go on top of it and then I have to wait again. So it's not something that I will sit down and, you know, paint from start to finish. This is one that I will work on over time. And I've actually had those two paintings kind of sitting for a while, and I've been working on them a little here and there, but they've just been this very slow climb, slow progress. Which is cool. Sometimes there's pieces like that, and I don't mind it. I really don't. Do you know what I'm liking about this piece? I like that all of the colors are working together, and basically I've centered them across the middle here in their true form, like straight out of the tube. And then everything on the outskirts, it's just mixed with white or mixed with another color. It's simple. In terms of how I usually paint with colors all over the place, it's simple and I like it. For a change, to go back to the basics for me is nice. And it works out particularly well when you're trying to film a painting from start to finish. Just go with a go-to color palette. These are really my favorite colors. This turquoise green. I can't tell you how many items, how many things I have that are a really close color to this or dead on the same color. It's just who I am. And I love it. This lime green, my bedroom growing up was this exact lime green color. I think maybe just a smidge lighter, but that's the color of my room growing up. And I remember I had the choice between this one and blue, and I chose this one so that I could have blue stuff in my room and they would just like complement each other. How funny is that? It's crazy. I knew from a very young age that if I could live my absolute most rock star life, that I would pursue becoming an artist. And to this day, like, it really hasn't been that much time that's passed since I made that choice in terms of like my whole life. But to this day, I'm still shocked that I did it. I'm like, what? The girl who was convinced that it would never be possible to make a dime selling her own artwork. What? Are you kidding me? I would not believe it if you told me when I was picking the color to paint my wall growing up. And I was already kind of older. I was, I think, in 8th grade. And that color lasted on my walls all throughout high school until my mom decided to paint it a few years after I moved out. It actually lasted there for a while. I think it was longer than a few years, but I loved that color. My parents no longer live at that house, so it doesn't matter anyway, but it's like the cliche when you see in a movie that the kids move out and the mom turns the kid's bedroom into like a sewing room or a fitness room, a craft room. It's I swear you see it in so many movies. And it's true. It happens. I've actually told the story very many times on Instagram about how I was so miserable chasing this life that I thought was just so dreadful. And I don't know, I gave up. I was like, this is it. Like, I've meant to live a boring life. And I decided one day that I hadn't created anything in years. Like, I spent so much time in school and then chasing all the wrong jobs, all the wrong careers, that finally I was just like, you know what, I should order some art supplies. Like, I need to unplug, unwind. I need to do what I love again. And of course, it had been years since I had done that. So I ordered some acrylic paint. And mind you, growing up, I took a lot of art classes. It was my favorite elective to choose. And it was always my favorite class. I particularly took an interest in 3D art, and I would love sculpting things. I still have, back in Arizona, I have a lot of 3D items that I made in school. A bobby pin holder that was kind of like the caterpillar from Bug's Life. A naked man sculpture that turned into a flower vase. This little effigy pot that I made in middle school. A little mouse whistle. Like, there's so many things. I got rid of some of it along the way too. Like, it was too much stuff. This little mummy that's in its coffin, and it's got hieroglyphics that describe the life that the mummy lived. That's the kind of art that I grew up loving. And for years, my mom had this saber-toothed tiger framed on the wall. It was this piece of construction paper that our teacher had us glue dirt to, and we had to paint a saber-toothed tiger on it using colors like yellow ochre, charcoal, Just colors that would be readily available in nature, as if like we were making this art on a cave wall. And so kind of channeling that caveman. And so yeah, that was the kind of art that I loved to make. And I hated painting, which is because I never tried like good quality paints. It was always like craft paints. And so I didn't like it. I didn't like that you had to go over the same picture with so many layers of paint just to get like full opacity. And so I stayed away from it. I was like, I don't like this. I like 3D art. I like working with my hands. I like sculpting. I like digging my fingers into, what did they used to call it? What do they still call it? What is it? When you mix the clay with water, slip. Yeah, and you would scratch and score the clay and put slip on it, and you would fire it and glaze it. I just much more enjoyed that kind of creating. Not really pottery, just like sculptures type things. And yeah, all of a sudden I was like, I'm gonna try painting. Like, I never gave it a fair chance. I just made a decision when I was really young that I didn't like it, and truth be told, I don't really remember why. And so I remembered why, like, instantly when I picked up a paintbrush, because I went with some pretty basic paint lines and I decided I didn't like it again. And so I started palette knife painting, and I got into oils. I ordered my first ever oil paints, and it was just instant love after that. Oh my gosh. That's how I first fell in love with painting, and I went through the whole spiel to figure out what kind of painting style I liked. I painted portraits, I painted landscapes, I painted abstract paintings, and I discovered that oils would give me headaches. And so I stopped. I don't know if I've repeated myself, because I've been on camera so much today talking about essentially probably the same thing. So yeah, I'm just realizing now, like, did I say this already? Oh well. If I did, oh well, I'm sorry, I apologize. So yeah, switched from oil paints over to acrylic paints, and I took the chance and I ordered like $200 worth of acrylic paints, and I was just in awe. I was like, where have you been all my life? I probably would have fell in love with painting a lot sooner if I knew that these types of paints existed. I thought all acrylic paint was kind of like craft paints, like just very watered down. And I was always the kid, you know how there were like two types of kids with respect to coloring with crayons, and you would have the kid that would lightly just do this little tiny like thin wash of color, and it would look like a really light shade, and it would just look blurry, and the color would just look washed out. And I would look at that kind of coloring and I'd be like, that's boring, I hate it, I don't like it. And I would color with more pressure to get more wax and more pigment on the paper, the coloring book, whatever. And that's the kind of, I guess, person now that I am. I like intense, vibrant, opaque color. And those new acrylic paints at the time changed it all for me. I was like, wow. And so it essentially opened up this new door for me. Like, I really started experimenting with different styles, and I really loved dry brushing and painting in layers and painting with all kinds of weird shapes, and I loved learning about composition, and just kind of teaching myself a whole new world of art things. Spending time to give myself art school, basically. It's funny. I actually have never had any intention to go to art school. I had enough with the pre-med stuff, and, you know, stressing about OChem and not loving what I was getting myself into for so long. It just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I felt like, you know, I'm always interested in learning. Like, I'm someone who gets intrigued and likes to learn new things constantly. But I had to take a break from like that kind of environment. And so I took it at my own pace, and I decided, you know, I'm gonna teach myself how to properly make art. I'm gonna teach myself composition. I'm going to learn about color theory. Of course, I learned all of this in school, but it was kind of like a refresher because you just really learn the very basics. And I wanted to take it a step further. And so I did. And I'm here now. Full-blown artist. Gosh, that didn't sound right. When you are lacking sleep, weird things start to come out of your mouth. Weird words, I should say, not weird things. That sounded bad too. So, yeah, I really like this piece. I really do. It's cute. You know, people ask me, like, would you buy your own art if you weren't you, basically? And I'm like, you know, I love the type of art that I make. It might sound silly, really. Like, it actually, half the stuff I say sounds silly to me once I hear it, like, especially if I'm reviewing footage. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I love the art that I create. That's why I make it, because I actually genuinely think it's super cool working in layers, thinking about it like a puzzle, and just having fun expressing myself. I gotta say, like, maybe this sounds silly too, but I've been reflecting a lot, journaling, and going through this whole weight loss journey. And I know I mentioned it before somewhere, either here or on my Instagram, but I've been reflecting a lot, and I'm just so grateful that I feel happy, because I was so miserable for so long. I was like, this really can't be it. This can't be what my life is gonna be. You know? Ah, fly. It's these lights. And so I've just been really grateful and thankful lately for this journey and what it's brought me, and that I feel a lot more clarity now that I've spent a few years doing this. And you know, I've really stepped into the role of being an artist, and I've embraced it. Because let me tell you, when you first start out, that is a really difficult thing to do. To actually give yourself the permission to call yourself an artist, to create, to share your work. Like, all of those things are really big steps. And it's so exciting, like everything, every day. You just have to learn to grant yourself the permission to do your thing and to be fearless about it, because that's what it takes. It's not easy. But once you realize that you're the only one stopping yourself from succeeding and growing, like, the sky's the limit from there, you know? And we should really start saying something like, and beyond. Because, you know, it's possible, or probably will be possible, for people to go beyond. Again, time just slips away, and I don't know when I got cut off. Jeez, I need to be better at this. I usually am when I first start out, like the first few increments of time. Now they're just starting to like blur together since it's like the end of the day. And it's not my fault, because I totally and fully intended to finish this painting in the same sitting, in the same session, but my camera had other plans. This piece, it's ready for the details. So, geez, I'm actually really proud of myself. Like, this is the first time that I have filmed something from start to finish, and I finished it. Like, I'm surprised. It's actually a little bit draining too, like, because I was mentioning before, I don't know if I got cut off when I was mentioning it, but this actually would take me a few days to finish, and I probably would have painted this along with like 10 other paintings. Maybe not 10, but a few at a time. So I use these Posca pens to frame the composition even further. I like to add different size details. I have different colors and different tip sizes, and it kind of gives the illusion of a really fine brush, because it is paint. but it is coming out of like a tip. And the thicker ones are felt tip, and this one's kind of just coming out of this plastic tip. So we accentuate, we circle, we dot. Speaking like if there's a team of people here helping me finish this. Nope, it's just me. We make the painting look better. I make the painting look better. And adding these details just makes it look more magical. More magical than it already is. And I have quite a few Posca pens. Of course, I'm always ordering new pens. Whenever I order paint, I tend to grab a few of these pens too, because you can never have enough. Like, you don't know what colors you're gonna need to complement your painting. Like, for example, this painting, I can use the exact same colors as my, well, these aren't exactly the same. I have another green, this one, and then I have orange, I have different kinds of orange. So you see what I mean? I can find the right markers to go with the painting and stay within the same family of colors. And I will really just add a few details here and there to bring out, I think that section is a little bit too wet still and it's mixing with the paint. It's all right. So, oh, these flies are bugging me. And then sometimes they run out. And I actually like how they look when they're running out, because anything that's imperfect is awesome to me. So I purposely try to, you know, with the marks that I make and with the ovals that I circle, little dashes, little lines, any kind of details. I love when they're imperfect because they're just more interesting that way. They make more sense. It doesn't look like something that was digitally created, if you will. Of course, I could like make this digital. I have dabbled with digital art before. Can't say I really stuck with it. I would like to get into that, like all of the NFT stuff. I almost got myself an iPad because of that reason only. But yeah, it's just, I like when things don't look fabricated. You can tell that it was made with someone's hand. And it was made with a lot of love indeed. So yeah, you get to a certain point with your art that you are the expert of your own style, and you can just create a painting out of nowhere pretty quickly. I guess the speed really is relative too. If we're talking oil paintings, then yes, this painting is very fast because of the way that I created it in layers. If I was to do the same thing with an oil painting, there's no way I would have finished it in the same day. Just because of the nature of oil paints, they need time to dry. And so that's one of the reasons I love acrylics so much, is that they dry quickly and I can keep up with the demand of my art. I can knock out a bunch of different ideas if I'm like flooded with them. Sometimes I'll grab my little art journal and I will just sketch out or paint, you know, those ideas that I was having. All right, so I know I didn't use yellow in this piece, but seeing as how similar it is to this yellow green, I am gonna put some in to draw that yellow green out even more and to show some contrast in other areas. It's all about that contrast. When you put purple and yellow together, or purple and lime green, ooh, it's so pretty. So you can see this piece is very quickly getting to the finish line. Ooh, something happened with this. It's like loose. I am just loving where this piece has gone. And you know, this was really fun for me because, like I said, it's been a while since I've done this. It's been a while since I created a piece from start to finish. Like, I really can't remember the last time I did. Because once I got into the whole social media aspect of my art business, and, you know, just keeping up with the Kardashians, no, I'm just kidding, keeping up with content creation and trying to play that game of creating nonstop and posting nonstop, you start to create a lot of artwork. And so when I figured out how I could sell this artwork, I just exploded. Like, I had to figure out a way to make more art quickly. And so doing this, like sitting down and putting all of my energy into one piece, like, that's just foreign to me now. in this same amount of time, I could have started, I could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces almost halfway done. And they might be of like similar color palettes because I'll just use the same paint that was on my palette. Maybe add a few different colors. But I don't regret this painting. Like, I don't regret it at all. Like, I don't regret the time that I feel like I lost. I don't feel like I lost any time because, you know, I feel like this video was cool to make and I didn't have anything like this on my channel, of course. But what I'm saying is that my usual go-to routine is a little different than this. And then I like to do something at the very end. I like to find one color, one Posca pen that is outside of this color palette. And I like to just fill it in, fill one of these bubbles in with that color just to give it this extra oomph. Like, we were so strict following this specific color palette. Now we're gonna step outside the box a little bit and give it some oomph. And I don't know if I should do that with a neon. No, I don't think I want to do neon on this one. This color, I don't think it's that noticeable, this one. It's just a darker teal. Yeah, definitely not that one, but I like how that looks. Pink. I go through this every time, I'm telling you. It's part of my process, it's part of my thing. I like one thing to be out of place. I don't want it to be super, super perfect, you know? Okay, I decided on this purple and I'm gonna stick with, ooh, maybe I like it here. Okay, yeah, I like it there. I'm right there. Okay. So that's my one little color out of place. And now it's just time to sign it. And another thing I like to do with signing it is finding a color that is already on here, but that will stick out or blend in depending on the piece, how busy it is. Since there is a lot going on this painting, I'm gonna put my signature down here, and I think I'm gonna do it in white. Except I need a fine white. Fine tipped white, which I think I don't have. So I'm gonna go with this cream color, which is actually, it's called Ivory. And then, fun fact, if you're gonna create a painting on paper, most likely it's gonna be matted and it's gonna be framed. Either way, if it gets matted or framed, what ends up happening is the size of your frame or mat will be just slightly smaller cut than your painting. Even though it's like a standard size, this is a standard 9x12. Same thing happens with 5x7, 8x10. Any standard size that you throw out there, 11x14, 16x20, whatever size it is, the mat is going to eat some of your painting. Even the frame might eat some of your painting. So I like to sign it maybe like a centimeter from the edge so that my signature shows up regardless of the frame or the mat. Since I've taped it down, I'm going to remove the tape and show you the finished piece. I'll do some close-ups with the camera not attached to the tripod so that it makes sense. But you can see that composition that it's like following, right? Everything is darker in the middle here, and then everything is lighter, bringing out the dark center of this painting. And that's what I like to call a wave composition. So I don't care what the fancy, correct textbook way to describe that is. I like to call it a wave. That's just my little fun bit of, that's my way to incorporate some fun into the boring, right? So there we go. Actually, I think that's a pretty good close-up. Oh, I gotta turn these lights off. The bugs are just incredible on fire. So this is what I mean by giving it some space from the edge. Excuse my ugly nails. So that when the mat or the frame eats some of your painting, boom, you can still see the signature. And voila, there it is. A painting created in the same day, the same session, kind of, because my camera died. So, well, I hope you enjoyed. This was fun. I'll be doing this a lot more in the future. I really enjoyed doing this. Yeah, I'll be doing it some more. Have a good rest of your day, night, morning, whatever time of day it is. Bye!